Hey, how's it going, everybody? Welcome back to another review. This is going to be my thoughts on the new high-intensity suspense thriller, Fall. So right off the bat, this movie starts off with a pretty cliche setup that we see in most movies up this film's alley. It's a tense opener that has to do with the height aspect of this film, and it shows a small group of climbers where something goes very wrong, which I will not spoil, but I will say this really quick. The film Vertical Limit, for example, has a very dramatic, intense opener as well, which is also a film that is kind of like up this film's alley. And I would almost compare this opener to that in a sense, but I will say this really quickly as well. This opener, it feels very wishy-washy in the sense of where, again, it is a pretty typical and cliche, high-octane, pulse-pounding, intense opener that kind of sets the film in motion. But I will say this, there was a sense of effectiveness with how the film actually went. There was actually some surprise as well as some jumps that do their best with setting this film up. But going from there, we're actually fast-forwarded some time ahead, where we actually meet one of our main characters, probably the most center character that there is to the movie, and how she has been since this event occurred. And we actually meet her father, played by Jeffrey Dean Morgan. And I just gotta say, this acting, this whole segment of the movie, it feels very bland. From the overdone acting to the overboard father and daughter chemistry, I just didn't buy it. And just like the whole direction with that, it just did not feel like just solid to me. It just wasn't good. I'm not gonna lie. But from there, we are actually introduced to our second lead actress, who was also part of this event that happened in the past. And her character opens with her having this idea that her and this character, our main character, should climb a 2,000 plus foot radio tower and get these two back to their roots and doing what they love, which is climbing, which they haven't done since this incident occurred. And what's interesting that I want to note is that this layout feels fine, I guess. It kind of felt like 127 hours in a sense where, there's enough detail and drama and background and enough introduction to things regardless of how, wishy-washy it may have actually landed. You still have enough to go forward and root for these characters as they're about to go forward and, attempting to climb this 2,000 plus foot tower. But consistently what you see, like, more or less right off the bat, is that our main character, especially in this opening act, this first act, was very just, lukewarm in pretty much every direction for the most part. But her acting, and again, this is kind of like a consistent thing, but it is more, in this first act, this performance of hers, it felt very lukewarm, and I think that the film as a whole kind of ended up struggling with that. I think that the way that her character is written, dealing with this trauma as well as fear, going forward with climbing this tower, and how the film tries to flesh that out, I think it does a decent job at it. I just think that, like, everything surrounding that and the potential that this film could have, being a high, anxiety ride, things just don't really deliver. And going forward, the film does try to, get viewers anxious for, the film that is about to unfold. We see warning and danger signs. This tower is literally right smack in the middle of fucking nowhere. Literally the fucking desert. And there's like vultures like circling around it and shit. And it's just like one of those things where it's like, I got it, but I still just kind of couldn't help but kind of like find it a little bit laughable. But I do think that for the most part, the film does deliver with its most important aspect, bringing out the anxiety-induced material of climbing this 2,000 plus foot tower in the middle of fucking nowhere, which is eventually revealed to be like the height of like 2 fucking Eiffel Towers, they say. The direction and angle that this tower is displayed is, no pun intended, but towering, and the whole just grand scheme of it looks very intimidating. And I think that the overall background of this character, while it isn't as strong, it does definitely help. Also now, how things escalate to where these two characters get trapped on the top of this tower, I think is executed for the most part fine as well. There are a lot of potential danger and risk factors that the film depicts and does a pretty good job at reeling the audience in and keeping them at the edge of their seats. But still, just the idea of this like one specific character, her traumas and fears, and now how long it's been since she's climbed, with this other character, her best friend, who, was part of this past incident and does understand her friend's fears, or at least should, with this also being the first fucking, adventure since the last incident. I thought, the side character, this friend, at least in the beginning, she did a lot to kind of, dilute the film at this point for me. Just the whole thing, regardless of how much the anxiety factor actually works in it. But now, once these characters do actually reach the top of the tower, which is where the film's main focus is, and leading into that, we get a lot of really stylish directing and visualization of their POVs, for example, and just overall really fun techniques of, displaying themselves on top of this tower. Up to this point, before they even reach the top, the film does pretty well with closing in on and centering this incoming doom and sense of dread. And the way that the film chooses to give audience that sense of fear and anxiety is done in some really smart ways, actually, where these professional and somewhat fearless, climbers actually showcased their accomplishment. I thought it was a really smart idea and smart way to, showcase this, fear and this anxiety, as well as kind of improve on character growth. And once they're actually stuck on top of this tower, I think that this is where not only the film starts to shine, but actually the characters as well, and the performances. Their reactions to certain things, as well as thought process at times, I thought was, displayed fine. And also just the writing in general. The plans that these two come up with to try and get off this tower, I thought was extremely smart. Stuff that I would have not, crafted in my head, at least initially. And for the film's overall feel as well, it just felt very proper, and I didn't, exactly see it coming. But what I do want to note, which is a big issue, is that I didn't actually find the film as intense, during what should have been its most, strongest points. Especially considering how well the film started to lead into that and, put that focus into gear. I found its overall execution, and again, just fear factor, very reminiscent to films such as Frozen, for example, where, it is a film that is very similar in this vein, where three friends get stuck on a ski lift and are stranded in the middle of a snowstorm. And how the overall film just ends up playing out. When you think about it, the idea of it all in your head, it doesn't sound bad, nor does it even look bad on screen. But what I was kind of surprised to see was that the film ended up taking a more dramatic turn, and I would even go as far as to say that at times it was more of a character study than anything. And now getting into the ending, the conclusion, the film does have a twist that I am not going to spoil, and up until this reveal and even onward, I did start to feel that sense of the film just kind of dragging on. And while this, ending did not feel necessarily any stronger than, the rest of the film, I do think that for a conclusion aspect, the film did, okay with. Overall, guys, I'm going to give Fall an overall score of 3.6 to a 3.7 out of 10 with an overall mixed review. Again, this wasn't a bad film, I just feel it had so much potential, and, especially even starting to get into the point where things are really getting interesting, it does really well with, but once it's actually at its peak and it should be its strongest, it just did not deliver. But guys, that is going to do it for my review of Fall. Thank you guys so much for watching this review, and I hope that you guys liked the video. Let me know what you guys thought about the movie down below for those that did see it. But with that being said, guys, this is going to do it for this video. I hope that you guys did enjoy it, and let me know what you guys thought about it down in the comments below. Take care, guys. Hope you're having a really good day, and I'll see you in the next one.